here to read another story today. Look, I wore my special Santa hat for you. But you know what? I don't know where my glasses are. Let's look around and see if we can find them. I think I put them somewhere over here. Look, I put them in the Christmas tree. We better get started. Okay, we're gonna read A Christmas Card for Mr. McFizz. The story's by Oberon Bokic, and the pictures are by Dan Lane. Mr. McFizz and Mr. Griswold were neighbors. Not neighbors in the sense that they had ever behaved in a neighborly fashion toward one another, but because they lived near one another. Mr. McFizz lived in a burrow. Not one of those tacky prefab burrows so quickly thrown together nowadays. His was of the solid old style, as he would have proudly told a visitor on tour of his home, if he had ever had a visitor. Built beneath a centuries-old oak tree, it was as sound and safe as could be, and it gave him great peace of mind. When Mr. McFizz had seen the burrow for the first time, it was one of those, well, you might call it a fixer-upper. The previous owner, the last of a long line of interesting creatures to live there, had left it in a terrible mess. But Mr. McFizz could see what might be with a little hard work and ingenuity. Fortunately, there was nothing he enjoyed more than cleaning, so the job was a very happy one. He didn't even mind it when he had to pound a loose wall with his head until it was safe and firm. Soon, the burrow was better than new. Mr. McFizz was so pleased with his handiwork, he made up a special housewarming song. I've swept and scrubbed, repaired and replumbed, pounded and painted, and now I'm all done. Look, he's so comfy in his new house. He took immense pride in his little home, so imagine his horror when a pack rat family moved into the old hollow stump next door. Mr. Griswold wasn't really a bad sort, just a little messy. A serious collector, he was forever finding treasures in other people's trash. And he cheerfully dragged those treasures home and stockpiled them against the day when he would one day find a use for them. Mr. McFizz could barely stand to look at the growing pile of rubbish in his neighbor's yard. Look at it, he has everything in there. Sometimes it was even left on his very door. Finally, after much soul-searching and general trepidation, Mr. McFizz marched right through the clutter to his neighbor's door. It had taken him days to work up the courage to speak to Mr. Griswold about the terrible state of his house and yard, but Mr. McFizz never got to deliver his well-rehearsed speech on community standards. No one answered his firm knock. He was certain that he could feel the Griswold's beady little eyes watching him as he stomped back to his house in a huff. The situation went from bad to worse. McFizz's irritation turned to disgust, and disgust to loathing as the pile of refuse grew. With dull fascination, he watched as his neighbor's yard became a junk heap. But it wasn't until December that his feelings about Mr. Griswold crystallized into genuine hatred. Like most fuzzy creatures, Mr. McFizz had few friends. In fact, if the absolute truth were known, he had none. Throughout most of the year, this didn't bother him, since he was generally occupied with cleaning. But at Christmas time, he had to admit he had a twinge of melancholy. It was at Christmas time, when he was sorting through his bills and the letters that were addressed to occupant, that he wished someone would just send him even just one little Christmas card. Sometimes there would be nothing at all in his mailbox, not even a catalog from the seed company. He had always been able to deal with this situation. After all, one can't expect everything out of life. But one horrible day in December, after another fruitless trip to his mailbox, he noticed several large square envelopes in Mr. Griswold's mailbox. Could it be? Carefully, he lifted the top envelope. It was neatly hand-lettered. It said, Mr. and Mrs. Griswold and Little Griswolds, 3 Acorn Way, Forestville. He examined the other envelopes. They were all addressed to the Griswolds, and he was certain that they were all Christmas cards. Then he realized that Mrs. Griswold was standing on her porch watching him. Ugh, how embarrassing. Smiling weakly, with studied casualness, he walked back to his house, the very picture of guilt. Oh, he got caught peeking in somebody's mailbox. This, however, was only one of many bad days for Mr. McFizz, as he observed a steady flow of Christmas cards to the Griswold household. One day, there were so many cards that Mr. Turner, the postman, couldn't fit them all in their mailbox, and he had to hand deliver the overflow right to their door. Mr. McFizz was never so relieved to see the holiday pass as Christmas that year. Instead of forgetting the whole unhappy affair, he worried about it well into the new year. As Christmas approached again, a plot hatched in his troubled brain, which, I must say, was totally unworthy of this otherwise fine fellow. Mr. McFizz's plan was a simple one. In late November, he bought every Christmas card that his limited savings would allow and addressed them to himself. He mailed a few each day, increasing the volume as Christmas loomed nearer. Then, knowing where Mr. Turner stopped for his coffee every morning, he crept up onto the unwary postman and actually stole the Griswold's Christmas cards from his mail pouch before he could deliver them. I think it's safe to say that Mr. McFizz had gone completely over the deep end. And I might say he's looking kind of guilty, isn't he? He then settled in to watch what he thought would be a delightful daily routine of collecting his Christmas cards, watching the disappointed Griswolds and addressing a few more to himself for the next day's delivery. He thought this would be great fun, but an odd thing occurred. He found that he felt uncomfortable instead of victorious each day when he collected his armful of phony Christmas cards while the Griswold's mailbox was bare. One day, very close to Christmas, Mr. McFizz watched as Mr. Griswold forlornly examined his own mailbox and then walked sadly back to his little house. It was then that an even odder thing occurred. He found himself addressing a Christmas card not to himself, but to Mr. Griswold. A few days later, when he watched Mr. Griswold find his Christmas card in his mailbox, Mr. McFizz caught a glimmer of what Christmas is really all about. He felt warm and good inside. The best part was yet to come. For the very next day, he found a Christmas card in his mailbox that he had not addressed. Not only did it wish him a very Merry Christmas, but also a Happy New Year. And what's more, it invited him to Christmas dinner at the Griswolds, where he met Mrs. Griswold and Mr. Griswold and numerous Griswold children, and drank eggnog and sang Christmas carols before a roaring fire. And he tried desperately to work up the nerve to say something to his neighbor about cleaning up his yard. Look, looks pretty tidy to me. Isn't that a great story? Mr. McFizz learned that giving something to somebody else made him feel so special inside. And we all love to get things in the mailbox, don't we? So today, we are going to send some notes, some special Christmas notes, to some people at our church, okay?
Okay, so you all have just listened to a beautiful book, A Christmas Card for Mr. McFizz. It's all about how wonderful it is to receive Christmas cards this time of year. So this craft, designed by our craft genius, Miss Jeannie Park, who also helped put together the majority of the crafts in your bag. Here are some examples of some Christmas cards that she has already made. A little snowflake on the front. It was a sticker. She put a little piece of white down there and wrote on there, believe. She put a little white on the inside of this card and wrote Merry Christmas. And then you can sign your name and maybe even have your parents or grandparents or aunts or uncles to sign it also. So now you're going to go to your kit, your little craft kit. You're going to pull out something that looks like this. It says, A Christmas Card for Mr. McFizz. You'll have some Christmas cards. Some of you will have 5 or 6. It'll include paper, envelopes, directory, and a little baggie of stickers and other fun goody things you'll find attached to this craft. So you'll take the cards. They're all different color cards, and you're just going to fold them in half. And you can design the front however you like. Use any of these ideas or some of your own very own ideas. Write a little something in the middle. You're going to put them in the envelopes, and you're going to have an adult help you address your cards to the people on your list that are highlighted. And we'll put stamps on them, and we'll get them in the mail and send them to some of our friends at church that might not have any family or are alone this holiday. And this would absolutely make their day to go to the mailbox and find a card from you. So we really want to thank you for this wonderful craft that's so thoughtful. I know many, many people will enjoy this. So thanks for doing that. And we have more crafts and stories coming, so you all stay tuned.